Hey everybody, welcome back. Alright, so in this lesson we are going to actually get started on making the track. So let's start with a blank project in whichever DAW you're working in. Now I work at 96K at a bit depth of 24-bit. So I advise you to set your project to the same, but if your computer struggles for processing power, then I'd probably use 44K instead and just 16-bit. But just remember that if you do use a different sample rate to me, then whenever you import any audio from the work files into your projects, you're going to have to make sure that your DAW converts them from 96K and 24-bit down to whatever sample rate and bit depth you're using. Okay, so just be aware of that. All right, so the first thing we want is an instrument, and of course we are going to use Vital. So I'm just going to add an instrument track. I will select Vital. Of course, we want it to be a stereo track, and I'll just click add. So this is Vital. I'm just going to turn it down a little bit just to start off with. And we want to load our first preset. Okay, so we're going to go to the hamburger menu, go open external preset, then navigate to wherever the work files are on your computer. They obviously came in the main tutorial download, and we want to go into Vital presets, and we're going to load BTP Old Saw DH. Okay, so just double click that. Okay, so just a nice gentle pad sound. Now, just so you know, this preset was actually very kindly given to us by Demis Helen, who made the pack that the preset came from. Just very quickly, you can check out Demis's presets on our site. So go to Born to Produce, go to Tools, Presets, and then you'll see all of Demis's packs here. This particular sound is from the Minimal House Bank. Now, you don't need this pack to complete the tutorial. Of course, every single preset that is needed to complete the course is in the work files. But if you are interested, then definitely check out Demis's Vital presets because they are amazing, and I do actually use them a lot in my own productions. So again, we've got a nice mellow sounding pad with a sort of slightly modulating kind of effect on it. Now we have that, let's bring in the basic chord progression that we started with. So in my DAW, I'm just navigating to where I've got the work files on my computer. Then in the MIDI folder, we'll have basic chord progression, and we just click and drag that onto our new Vital track. So let me just very quickly play that. Okay, very simple at the moment, of course, and I'm just going to go into it and we'll explain how it's made up. So if you watched the previous video, you'll know that the scale that we actually chose for this track is A flat minor. So this note, even though it says sort of G sharp on it, is actually A flat. It's not super important, but for anyone who's not into music theory, you got the note A here. And then obviously if it's a flat, then the note below it is the flat. Okay, so again, not super important. So just to explain the makeup of this chord progression, the first chord is of course A flat minor. The second chord is E major. I'll explain the difference between major and minor chords in a moment. And the third chord is D flat major, which actually should be a minor chord if we were just sticking to the A flat minor scale, but I found the major chord works better to help the progression resolve properly. So just so you know, the difference between a major or a minor chord is literally that. That's all it is, right? So you got the root note, you got the top note, which is almost always 7 notes higher than the root note, and then you've got the middle note, which is either a minor chord, like it is set up now, or a major chord. Now again, if we were following the A flat minor scale, then this would be the correct note, and it would sound like this. But we chose to have this as a major chord, which is effectively called a borrowed chord. And it just has a much nicer feel to it. Now, you don't have to understand music theory in order to be able to make great music, but it really can help. So if you are interested in learning more, then definitely check out our Music Theory for Beginners tutorial, which is on our website, as it will teach you how to make your own awesome melodies from scratch. But I don't want to go into that anymore. Let's just crack on. So let's come out of the chord progression. And before we go any further, what I want to do is just make a copy of this. So I'm just going to copy that across. That is a unique copy. So if I make changes in here, it won't affect this version. And we're going to come back to that later on. And now what I want to do with the pad is actually just open it up. So I'll go back in And to make this a little bit more impactful, we're just going to spread these notes out a bit. So it's very, very simple to do, and it can have a nice impact on how the chord progression sounds. So what we're going to do is select the top notes of each chord, and then we're just going to raise this up by 2 octaves. Okay, so I think in most DAWs you can do it by holding Shift on your keyboard and hitting the up arrow. Okay, so now we're in E flat 5 instead of E flat 3. Okay, and then we're going to select the middle notes, and we're going to raise them up by 1 octave. Instead of being in B2, they'll be in B3. Okay, if I just zoom out a bit, you can see all the notes together. Okay, so that's what it sounds like now. This is what it sounded like before. Okay, so it just opens up the chords, like I said, and gives it a little bit more impact than just having a very basic chord progression. Now we can come out of there, and just a little bit of housekeeping. So I'm going to call this Vital Pad. I sort of use a color coding scheme in my project, so I just can recognize tracks very quickly by their color. So for sort of synth instruments, I generally use a sort of like pinky red color. So I'm just going to change the color of this to that sort of pinky red color. And because we've got 2 sort of versions of the pad here, we've got the very basic chord progression and then the one that we've opened up. I'm just going to color one of these a slightly different color so I know that it's the different version. So let's just color that a sort of purpley color, and then we know that that is a different version. I can even change the name to Vital Pad Basic there, and then we're super clear on what's happening in our project. Okay, so that is the basic musical structure in, and the first element, the pad, that's in. In the next lesson, we're going to look at how I made that big layered synth lead, as that is the kind of hallmark of this entire track. So if you are watching the free lessons on YouTube or on our site, this is the last free lesson. In order to continue making this track, you will need to buy the course. Now, the reason we charge for our courses is this course has taken well over 2 months to create, from making the original track to planning all of the lessons, weeks of recording and editing, all with the goal of helping you learn progressive house music production in the most fun and informative way possible. So I hope you think that is worth it, and I hope to see you in the course. Here is a clip of the track that you're going to continue making to remind ourselves of what we're aiming for. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Liquid lust in a brown-eyed stare. Let me breathe in your love affair. One sip of your soul, baby. You'll never know. If I died in the dark. I loved your heart. If I died in the dark. I loved your heart. If I died.